We're out of here.
What's going on in there? I know Jordan and I got into a fight, and you freaked out, but I had to tell him. You know what? This is the kind of world we're living in. People aren't always gonna like you. But you know what? You have to stand up for what you believe in sometimes. Yeah, I said a lot of things I shouldn't. Probably shouldn't have. And I was quite mean. I would say I didn't handle it the best, but you know what? Whatever. I don't care what he has to say or anybody has to say. It's all just too much, and I'm just, well, frankly, I'm just over it. What is this we're listening to? Make this stop. Oh, you know what? I know you were in here doing things and having fun, but it's about me right now. I'm upset. I'm upset and I'm angry, and I don't care. Because, you know what? I've had enough. Everything I do around here, that's right. It needs to be like this. And I said, Jordan, I don't care. What you say is stupid. You're being a wimp, you're being a wuss, and it doesn't matter. And I said, blah, blah, blah. And he said, F you. And I said, no, F you, and you know what? F you too. Hello, fellow insomniacs, and welcome to another episode of Hey, I Can't Sleep with me, your host, Jordan James. We're going to duck and cover here because we're going to talk about a subject that some of you might be familiar with, some of you might not be familiar with. This topic is the topic of emotional dysregulation. So stay tuned, fellow insomniacs. Now, just as a disclaimer, oh, I can't find my disclaimer, but anyway, there could be triggers in this episode. So please, go up ahead, grab a teddy, and maybe have some tea. Stay tuned. Okay, so here's the disclaimer I'm talking about. I'm not a psychiatrist, and I'm not a mental health professional. I'm only a patient. So, this is personal experience. If you're really struggling, please call 911, call your DBT therapist, call your counselor, reach out to a friend. The Niagara Distress Center Niagara, there's the number, 905-688-3711. Hang on and hang in. Hey, I can't sleep. Won't you come and bitch with me? So grab yourself a tea and come and bitch with me all night. Yeah! Hey there, so emotional dysregulation. According to the handy dandy internet, emotional dysregulation is a term used in the mental health community to refer to an emotional response that is poorly modulated and does not fall within the conventionally accepted range of emotive responses. So it basically means you're not really able to regulate the ebb and flow of your emotions maybe as effectively as someone who, has either been taught how to do that, or someone that has maybe a little bit more neural flexibility to do that. And at the same time, your emotions also, the intensity of them isn't as warranted as you might think. You're either overreacting to a situation or you're underreacting to a situation. Some people think that emotional dysregulation is just about freaking out, but it's also about shutting down as well. So if you struggle with shutting down, it's important to take a look into, why that is. So once again, I can't speak for everybody else. I can only speak for myself here on Hey, I Can't Sleep. So I can use my own personal experience to maybe help make certain situations relatable and help to end some of the stigma around some of the things we talk about. So, I want you to think about the level of emotion that was acceptable in your family of origin. How loud were you allowed to be? How reactive were you allowed to be? How responsive were you allowed to be? So think about that, and then we'll come back to it. So now that you've thought a bit about what your emotional experience was like in your home, let's talk a little bit about emotions because we're going to come back to that. So I found this really cool article in Scientific American, scientificamerican.com/article/feeling our emotions. And a man named Antonio Damasio, he said something really interesting that I enjoyed. Emotions are snapshots of your physical state. So let that sink in for a minute. Emotions are snapshots of your physical state. He also says that certain feelings are cornerstones to our survival. They preserve our lives and shape our cultural responses. So, wow, pretty profound, right? That's the thing. Emotions aren't bad. But sometimes we grow up, and certain people maybe didn't appreciate the emotions we were having or didn't know how to deal with them when we were kids, or maybe, we were in relationships with people and they had their own issues and they didn't know how to deal with our emotions or deal with their own. So, things got really stressful or really scary or really controlling, really abusive. These are all factors that make it difficult for people to understand how to safely and in a healthy way express their feelings. Because if you suffer from emotional dysregulation, it's more than likely because maybe you have a physical issue, a brain injury, chemical issues, things that are biologically affecting the way that your brain processes your emotions, or you have emotional deficits where you've had to learn to shut down your feelings, push them down into your gut and pretend that they don't exist. Or maybe you have spent so much time doing that eventually now you're just exploding. It's like a volcano. It's like you've got like burns on your body. You don't know how to hold anything. That can make it really difficult for you to understand how to express your feelings. So, what can you do? Well, first, take a deep breath. Think about how you grew up. I grew up in a home where you were only allowed to express emotions if it was accepted by the adults that were taking care of you in a way that kept them not accountable for their treatment of you. Does that make sense? So basically, it's really hard to have your own feelings when someone else is controlling your environment because of their own issues. So your own thoughts, feelings, and ideas can get lost in the ebb and flow of that kind of dysfunction. So for me, it was kind of like that. I grew up, and maybe you grew up, in environments where you had parents who had substance abuse problems. You had parents who had serious anger issues, or all of the above. You had maybe a mother who shut down, who pretended that certain things weren't happening, or a father or whoever, a grandparent, whatever. So you got confused. Your body started to learn that maybe you weren't allowed to confront adults about their behavior. So what do you do? What do you do when you can't be open and honest about the way that you feel? Well, your emotions become dysregulated because now you're thrust out into a world where it doesn't have the same rules as the rules in your home. So what do? Think about that. Think about what it was like. And I'll make a second video if you're still interested in this topic, because I don't want to make them too long, because then people just get bored and then I ramble, or then it takes forever to download it. So stay tuned and we'll talk a little bit about emotional dysregulation and the tips that we can use to help people understand why it's hard, help yourself understand why it's hard, and things you can do to bring yourself back down to a safe place where you can express yourself. Stay tuned!